Good evening and welcome. This is a meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Halton District School Board for Tuesday, the 2nd of April 2024, on World Autism Awareness Day. In accordance with Ontario Regulation 463-97 and guidelines effective February the 1st, 2021, HDSB promotes community engagement and participation by having processes in place for members of the public to ask questions. A Google form was attached to the agenda distributed in advance of the meeting and is also posted on the HDSB CEC website page. Questions posed during live stream meetings of CEC may be answered during that meeting, particularly those related to agenda items, or at the following meeting at the discretion of the chair. For efficiency, multiple questions that are received that are similar in nature may be grouped together at the discretion of the chair and/or vice chair. Questions will not be attributed. Notation will be made that multiple people ask the same question. Any questions that contain language that is hateful or discriminatory will not be considered. So first we'll start with a roll call to see who's in attendance. Please answer yes or present.
Kate Lombacher, Association for Bright Children. Sarika Kanithi, Association for Bright Children. Amanda Winch, Autism Ontario.
Here.
Jennifer Lagar, Autism Ontario.
Present.
Diane Vandenbosch, Center for Diverse Learners. Allison Brindle, Center for Diverse Learners.
Present.
Nadina Torek, Community Living Burlington.
Present.
Angel Zuzik, Community Living North Halton.
Angel's just the backup for CLNH.
Thank you. Evelyn Bursey, Community Living North Halton.
Present.
Sarah Lansley, Easter Seals.
Present.
Melissa Dockery, Easter Seals.
Present.
Sophia Siddiqui, Halton Down Syndrome Association. Erin Rupal, OPFIC.
Present.
Erin Spruill, Voice.
Present.
Kaisa Klassen. Katie Schleifer, present. Naveed Ahmed, trustee. Trustee Carol Baxter.
Present.
Trustee Joanna Oliver.
Present.
Xinyi Zhang, trustee.
Good evening, everyone.
Superintendent Ruddock.
Hello.
And Conan Spruen, Halton Board.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to begin by honouring the land. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Etowonderan, the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honour and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. So first we're going to move to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any modifications or amendments that need to be made to the agenda? If so, would you indicate your wish to speak in the chat box?
All right. Would anyone like to move a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Amanda. Would anyone like to second this motion?
Aaron Sproul will second it.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to oppose the agenda as it now stands? If you would like to make yourself known, if you oppose the agenda. None being seen, the agenda is approved unanimously. Next, we have the approval of our March the 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any errors and omissions that people want to bring to attention?
Would anyone like to move a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Amanda. Would anyone like to second this motion? Melissa, thank you.
Is there any opposition to the minutes as they've been recorded? If so, could you please indicate that now? None being seen, the March 5th, 2024 meeting minutes are approved unanimously. So we're now going to move on to our action items, and our first item for this evening is a presentation by Jen Valler on HDSB's anti-bullying strategy with particular reference to the impacts on students with special educational needs. Jen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Hoping that everyone can hear me okay. I'm seeing, and I'm not sure if I'm able to just share a brief presentation that I have. Will that come up in the boardroom for those of you that are there?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, perfect. Just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. One moment here. Great. I'm just going to go a slideshow. All right. Okay. So in reviewing the agenda, I know that I have approximately 20 minutes. And so I am going to start with a short presentation, and then hopefully there'll be some time for some additional questions. At the end of this presentation, I've also listed my email address. So if anybody wishes to follow up directly after the session, I'm more than happy to answer questions for you. So thank you so much for the opportunity to come and share some of the work that we are doing within the Halton District School Board. So I wanted to just talk in general a little bit about bullying, and certainly noting that the United Nations report does shed lights on the inequalities of power that operate. And we're not always able to see everything on the surface, and that's where the image of the iceberg comes from. And we really want to recognize that children's experiences of being bullied are often therefore a reflection of disadvantage, stigma, and discrimination within wider society towards certain groups. And we do know that our HDSB data, our student census data from as recently as 2021, would demonstrate that a large number, a concerning statistic, that 39% of our students in secondary and 25% of our students in elementary responded rarely or never when given the following prompts. And we know that bullying has a huge impact on feeling happy at school, feeling a sense of belonging, feeling accepted by students in my school, feeling accepted by adults in my school, and then feeling that school rules are fair. So we know we have work to do in the area of bullying prevention and intervention. And we were just recently guided by an updated ministry PPM 144, which speaks to the direct and explicit actions that schools must take in order to respond, as well as to prevent the harm that is caused by bullying. So in terms of our big ideas, our Halton District School Board schools, and I'm sure you've heard before, we talk about our school improvement planning. And so part of that plan is the creation of a well-being plan. And although I represent Safe Schools here tonight, I'm also a superintendent with schools, school responsibilities. I support 11 schools in the south of Milton. And in addition to that, I also work very, very closely with my colleagues, Colette Ruddock being one of them. We work with the special education team. Conan Spruan is here. And in addition to that, we also partner very closely with our student well-being and mental health department, led by Superintendent Barnes, and also our equity, inclusion, and human rights department, led by Jenny Petco, and finally our Indigenous rights and education department, led by Jenny Petco. So we work together in collaboration because we know that student well-being, student experiences, and belonging definitely does require a coordinated approach. So really, we created a well-being plan for all of our schools with very similar goals across all of our schools. And we've really focused on the specific actions that our schools must implement. And we have identified the various strategies that our schools will engage in. And in addition to that, a lot of professional learning and development, and it is part of a two-year cycle. So you'll see in a little bit, one of our measures is going to be this spring when we do our Have Your Say survey data. We do know that we're looking to see some better responses and more proactive results. So these are our goals. We're really looking at decreasing the percentage of students who experience bullying. And we certainly do know, as was highlighted here, and part of the reason why I'm here, that we do have disproportionalities that exist for students who identify as Indigenous, Black, gender diverse students, sexually diverse students, and students with IEPs. So when I see that disproportionality, it does speak to the fact that we really, not only do we have work to do to close the gap for all students, but we really want to specifically support students who are experiencing a higher degree of lack of that connection to school, feeling safe at school, and experiencing bullying. So those are the goals that every single school across our board would have as part of their well-being goals. So I mentioned a moment ago a little bit about accountability measures. So we are having a Have Your Say system survey, and that will be taking place this spring. Lots of our schools do their own data gathering through school self-assessments, and we also talk with our administrators and staff feedback through superintendent visits and other opportunities for us to engage in dialogue through maybe our family of schools meetings, etc. The schools are going to collect their evidence through their classroom visits, through student focus groups and surveys, as I mentioned. They may collect and reflect on observations. I know that one of my schools actually actively engages students in leadership around this, and they've collected a great deal of data over the past 2 years. And then at the end of every school year, schools are looking to monitor progress of their well-being goals and their action plan, and then they need to make adjustments for the following year. So really, ensuring accountability is the number one thing we know we can do. Schools are really well positioned to respond to all forms of bullying. They're well positioned to educate students on the prevention and promotion of healthy relationships. They're also there to notice troubling changes in a student's mental health and well-being, and they're going to look to connect with those students and to try to build that rapport so that they can learn more about what might be at the root of this. Staff are expected to establish and maintain anti-colonial, anti-oppressive, anti-racist learning environments and engage in professional development that is continuous in order to address bullying and harmful behaviors. We know that prevention and intervention is the key. So we do actually have a Halton District School Board bullying prevention and intervention administrative procedure that can be found on our website, and it definitely does outline the parameters and expectations that we would have for all of our employees. We also, of course, align with our Code of Conduct, Discriminatory and Harmful Language Protocol, the Ontario Human Rights Code, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So really what we're trying to do is we are accountable to those we serve. So I highly encourage any family who's ever experiencing a situation that isn't sitting right, something doesn't feel right, maybe your child isn't necessarily opening up to you, but you know something's just not correct, do encourage you to reach out and connect with their teacher and or their school administrators so that we can typically, it's easiest if we can respond sooner than later. So, never feel like you have to wait until something big happens. These ongoing open dialogues are the key to us being able to respond appropriately. So I want to just talk a little bit about prevention and intervention. Definitely when we're thinking about those targeted actions that we're wanting our schools to engage in, things like reviewing the Halton District School Board's Code of Conduct and engaging in lessons that have been created for K-12, and asking teachers to do this at the beginning of every school year, and perhaps a refresher sometime in February when we sort of look at starting term 2. We want to talk a little bit about bullying and help our students to identify so that they can be part of the solution. Really thinking about bias-free progressive discipline and considering mitigating and other factors. So we do know that when children are engaged in bullying behavior, we also have a responsibility to ensure that we are listening to the reasons behind that and maybe some of the decisions that led them to that place, and really looking at that mitigation when we need to, because really we are about education, and that's really the first point, starting point that we want to always include. We want to build healthy relationships between our students and our staff. We want students to feel comfortable reaching out to tell their teachers that there's a problem. We want to build supportive learning environments, and we really want to engage parents, families, and caregivers in being partners in resolution. We want to provide student leadership opportunities. This is a great opportunity. I know myself as a principal for many years, really looking at finding those leadership opportunities for students helps to keep them engaged and gives them that opportunity to shine within their school. We really want to make sure that our staff are critically conscious and that they're really bringing that lens in order to identify and remove any barriers that may exist for a student. Those are just, again, some of the preventive strategies. But in terms of interventions, and I'm going to share with you a document that's sort of hot off the presses right now in a moment. But really, when we're talking about intervention, we do have that expectation that our staff, all staff, teachers, educational assistants, lunchroom supervisors, custodians, principals, vice principals, you name it. Anyone that sees bullying has a duty and a responsibility to respond. So really, it's using those teachable moments. It's ensuring that we're providing and following progressive discipline, and that we're engaging parents, guardians, and caregivers in those conversations early and often, because we need to interrupt the forms of bullying. And how we do that is what I'll talk about a little bit next, because we've created a bullying response protocol. So that's a picture of it. It's probably really difficult for you to see right now because it's not super large, but I'm going to go to each individual breakdown afterwards. So we'll go to the first one. And I did say this is hot off the presses because we have just recently rolled this out with our school administrators. And then over the course of the next 3 months, they're going to be engaging their staff in this learning. And then into September and October, in conjunction with our brand new school year and starting off on the right foot, we're going to be sharing it with students and families and caregivers. So very excited about this great work. And again, really an amalgamation of many things that we have out there, but also a team effort by multiple departments across our school board. So the first step in our bullying response protocol truly is to stop and identify. We need our teachers to ensure that they are responding and that they are supporting the student who has been harmed as well. That should almost be first and foremost. So really ensuring that you're centering your response such that it preserves the dignity and well-being of the student that has been harmed. And we want to really make sure that they know we're there from them and creating that circle of support from the very beginning. The second step is really explaining. We need to be very consistent in the terminology that we're using. We need to label bullying for what it is. We would be using things like that is bullying behavior. We may label it one of the 7 forms of bullying. Maybe it's physical bullying or social bullying. And then if we are ever unsure of what the student is telling us, we're going to ask questions and have follow-up discussions, because we need to highlight the impact of student actions on others, and that we have to reassure the student who is harmed that it's never their fault and no one should ever be in a position to allow a bully to continue that behavior. So working together for student well-being, this is definitely a real focus for us. It's about transparency. And you've heard me mention that our staff, our parents, our caregivers, and our families, we really want everybody to wrap around that circle of support for someone who has been harmed by bullying. And we also want to ensure that we maintain that communication ongoing. We know that often bullying happens sort of underneath. It's not always so observant. You can't just see it all the time. So it's that follow-up, it's that check-in, it's that communication that we have with our families and our caregivers so that everyone can stay informed and up to date. And we also have a rigorous documentation process as well for this. And sometimes those reports might be safe schools related reports. Sometimes they are disciplinary supports that the principal would organize. Next part is sort of that support and follow-up. I've kind of talked a little bit about this, but definitely really centering the support for all students involved and really looking at addressing any systemic issues that may indirectly or directly contribute to incidents of bullying. So thinking about the work we do to create safe, inclusive, and welcoming schools, really that's what we want to think about when we have incidents of bullying that are happening. How are we reflecting on that as a larger school population and looking at the things that we offer at our school in order to address and prevent rather than just respond to the bullying. And then ensuring accountability. So it is really important that everybody is centering human rights and providing a learning environment that is inclusive and respectful for all students. And we really want to engage in continuous professional development in order to address bullying and harmful behaviors. So really it is about being there. It's about being responsive. It's ensuring that we are accountable. And again, it's helping our families and caregivers and students to know how to report. And one of the other pieces that we're looking at sort of revising, it's not really a revise, but on every single school website, you will find a report bully button or report bullying button. And that is a way for any parent, family, caregiver to report. Could be anonymously, although then there wouldn't be any follow-up for you. But you can report, and that email goes directly to the administrators of the school. And just like I said before, they have an obligation to review that and to respond. So these are just some of the ways that we are, working hard to prevent, but also to intervene appropriately when incidents of bullying occur. And really, I think our goal with this new protocol is to ensure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to the expectations around the responsibilities for everyone that's involved. And so that's something exciting that's going to be coming this fall. And as I said, my email is Fowler and then J for Jennifer at hdsb.ca. So if we don't have time for your question, or you just want to ask something a little bit more privately or talk to me about a situation, feel free to send me an email and we can set up a call at any time. So I'm going to stop my presentation right there and just open the floor. I think we probably have a few minutes for some questions, and happy to take those.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was very informative. Does anybody have any questions at this stage? Kate.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. Seeing as this is the Special Education Advisory Committee, I'm curious to know whether there are any protocols in place, or I don't know what else you'd call it, but for children that are nonverbal or those who would have difficulty communicating. If there was an intervention from an EA or a teacher, how would we determine whether, they're feeling that they're being bullied, or that, how would we get that information from them, or what would that intervention look like? And then where would you go from there with a child who's nonverbal, who might have issues with communicating feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really thinking about one of our pieces that are key to this work is really getting to know and understand our learners. So whether it's an educational assistant or a teacher, they sort of have a sense of who their children are, who their learners are that they're working with. And through communication with families, parents, caregivers, they would be able to identify and open up a conversation so that way they're noticing something that isn't sitting right. So it may not be the child that's actually verbalizing it, but through their actions, they are expressing that. And then typically, our school administrators, our teachers, our educational assistants are going to work with parents and reach out to sort of try to get to the bottom of what might be happening. And then lots of times it really is a heightened observation would be one of the strategies that a teacher or educational assistant could use if they're noticing a child isn't seeming as happy maybe as they normally were, and they're going to really try to monitor that situation. And I know that they take very detailed notes and lots of tracking and data communication. So I think that those would be some of the ways I would suggest they do that.
Thank you.
I actually have a follow-on from that, which is another group of our learners who can be disproportionately impacted by bullying, and that's students with ADHD. Is there, we often find that our students with ADHD struggle with social interactions and maybe excluded. So what kind of informational or training is given to staff to better understand ADHD, which historically has been seen as a behavior rather than a neurological disorder, and therefore equally deserving of empathy and support in when some behaviors may seem annoying to children or others?
So you mentioned one of the 7 forms of bullying, and we sort of put that in the category of social. And typically what that looks like is exactly what you shared. It's a form of exclusion. It's leaving out. It's not wanting to be part of the group. Again, I think our staff, especially when we have that partnership with our families and our caregivers, and we come to the table and we talk about the needs of the student and the learner, and we really get to know to them, we're going to be able to, again, monitor and observe. And we certainly recognize as a board all of the wonderful gifts that our students come to us with, and including those students who have ADHD. And I mean, I've been an educator myself for many years, and really find that over time, you really develop those skills as to what to look for, what to watch for, how to respond, and how to create those environments in which case those students, all students, feel like they belong. But specifically, maybe it's a specific type of organization that happens where you would have those students working with other students in group work, and just helping with those skills and the development of those skills. And that can be part of the work that you do and the goals that you set in the classroom with the teacher through maybe their individualized education plan or just through conversation. So just encourage those families to really truly connect with the educators that work with their children, and just in general, we are always learning about special education needs and students, and we really do take the time to get to know our learners, which is the key.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? I have one more. You mentioned the desegregated data from the Have Your Say and the disproportionality. Is there any point at time that you would be able to share with us as members of SEAC the disproportionality of bullying as relates to students with special needs? So, how much are they bullied more than our other students?
Yeah, so it's not so much that we have the data specific to the bullying, but it's that sense of well-being and belonging that we're speaking to. Certainly, I can work with Dr. Pasheglia, who is our research officer, and she would be able to provide that very specific by breakdown, not so that when we speak to that disproportionality, I could provide that in a slide, and happy to return to present or to share it with Colette, who could share it, because it is board data. It's not just Safe Schools data.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and further to that, this year we've worked with the research department to have a couple of questions added to the Have Your Say survey that our students are doing this year. That is, do you have an IEP, and are you in a self-contained classroom? And when students then respond to all of the questions in Have Your Say, which include some of the pieces that Jen's spoken to, we can disaggregate that with those in self-contained and those with IEPs in the regular classroom, so that we can dive a little bit deeper into that work as well.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question to that. So I know not every child in a self-contained class is verbal or has the capacity to be able to fill out the survey or be able to do it in a manner in which other kids might be able to. So are there any, is there anything in place to be able to allow that to, get that information from children who still have feelings and are living in that classroom where they might not be able to answer a survey like any other child's, where, they could have help from an EA or something to, communicate through a device or what have you to get the same sentiment shared?
Yeah, great question. And absolutely, our staff in our self-contained settings and for the staff that support students in non-self-contained classrooms that are nonverbal, they do work with the students to the greatest extent possible to have them do the survey with assistance, all the while making sure that it's the student's voice and not the educator. But families are also able to complete the Have Your Say survey as well. So when a student's voice can't be captured, sometimes that can be captured through a parent as well.
All right. Are there any more questions? Not at this time. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer, for coming and presenting to us. Very informative. I'm looking forward to seeing that document in full and being able to take a look at it. It looks great.
Thank you so much. You all have a wonderful evening. Take care.
All right. Thank you. All right. So next we're going to welcome Erin Ruppel from our newest SEAC member, OPVIC, Ontario Parents of Visually Impaired Children, to give us some information about their services and work. Erin.
Yes, hi. All right, I have a little presentation. Let's see here. Which tab am I in? Go here and I'll share my presentation. Are you able to see that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. All right, so the OPVIC stands for the Ontario Parents of Visually Impaired Children. I have two boys that are both visually impaired. They're considered legally blind. Both have a genetic eye condition, and that's how I got involved with OPVIC. OPVIC is for parents, guardians, family members, for anyone who has kids who have low vision, blind, deafblind, any other vision loss, and other disabilities. We are volunteer, nonprofit, and membership is free. They were formerly called VIEWs for the visually impaired. So we offer peer-to-peer support, but not individual support or legal advice. If that's something that a parent comes to us looking for, we just direct them to another organization. And our website is opvic.ca. So what do? We will connect you to other parents or guardians of children with vision loss in your community or with similar visual challenges. Provide access to helpful information and resources. And in partnership with the CNIB, OPVIC provides monthly education programs, and they're on a very varied topics every month, and they're all held virtually. Another big part of OPVIC is advocacy. So we advocate to the Ontario government and local school boards to get them to improve how they meet the needs of students with vision loss. There's a number of WhatsApp groups for OPVIC. This I find the most helpful thing in terms of support. If you ask a question in the WhatsApp group, you're going to get an answer from somebody who knows the answer. There's specific groups based on location, topics, just a whole bunch of information in there, and people who've been in the group since their kids were little and now their kids are 20, and they just are a wealth of information. So CNIB partners with OPVIC, again, to deliver a monthly parents meeting. So some of the topics have been just this year, Braille literacy, discussion panels from experienced parents, new technology for blind, low vision, and accessible sports. And then the CNIB provides in-person programs for kids that are regularly advertised through OPVIC, such as camp, music, and sports. All right, so OPVIC believes that students with visual impairments deserve the same education as sighted children, but there seem to be still gaps in this education, and we have a big opportunity to be more inclusive. Caseloads for our vision itinerants are full across the boards in Ontario and are very demanding. Most itinerants are covering many schools over not just one city, but it could be many cities throughout the board. Like our vision itinerant I'm in Georgetown, and she does Georgetown, Acton, and some schools in Milton. So it's a big caseload for her because kids are all over the place, not just centralized in one school. And then some parents have been told to send their kids to W. Ross Macdonald, which is the school for the blind, because vision itinerant services cannot be met in the child's home school. So I've heard this in cases where Braille literacy cannot be met, and the vision itinerant, her case is too full, and the student's teacher obviously doesn't know Braille. So in that case, if they want to continue learning Braille, they might have to go to another school. So at OPVIC, we see a need for consistency between regions as there are discrepancies between boards. And we feel that there should be more support in terms of providing accessible education. One of these examples is in gym class, where a lot of kids just end up sitting out because their teachers just don't know how to teach blind kids or include them into some programs. But CNIB and WROS have some programs where they can come into the schools and provide free classes or at a minimal fee in teaching accessible sports. And then because vision loss is so complex, it's not the same for all children. It's an ongoing learning process in educating parents, teachers, and staff and creating the best learning environment for the child. So advocacy. OPVIC advocates for all kids to get the same opportunities in schools. So at one point this year, Peel talked about removing vision itinerants from their schools next year, and OPVIC went into overdrive advocating for this not to happen. Because it's actually written into the human rights. There's a legal right for Braille and low vision to be taught in schools, and vision teachers cannot be removed entirely. So OPVIC sent a letter to the Minister of Education, and then parents went to the media, and Peel revoked those their decision and reinstated vision itinerants. I've included, so this presentation I think will go out with the minutes. But there's a news article here of when the parents went to the press. So some other things that this isn't necessarily OPVIC run, but this is just a great way for parents to get in touch with other parents and for kids to meet other kids with low vision, is W. Ross Macdonald's short-term programs. So they offer programs for kids on weekends for students in Ontario who are blind and visually impaired. These weekends go from a Friday to a Sunday, and they are in things like art, sports, cooking, STEM. There's a hockey weekend, and kids get to meet other kids and live in dorms and experience what it's like to live away from home. And then each fall and spring include a family weekend for parents to attend with their children. And then they'll get to attend seminars on specific topics without their kids there. And CNIB Lake Joe is another program that's run for families with vision loss. And this is a CNIB program. So they offer camps throughout the summer, and some of the camps are children only, some are for teens, some are for adults, and some are for families. So the week that's just for families is a great week for OPVIC parents to go and meet their friends that they've only talked to on WhatsApp groups or met virtually. And a lot of kids who might only be in a school with one child, like just being themselves, who are blind or low vision, this is a great place to meet peers as well. And then I've just included some other blind and low vision programming. So CNIB Guide Dogs, they run a program as well for kids called the Buddy Dog Program. So if you are a kid and you'd like to feel what it's like to have a guide dog, you can apply for the Buddy Dog Program. And these are kind of the dogs that don't quite make the cut for guide dogs, but you can have one in your home and you basically treat it just like a guide dog, and it's able to go anywhere that you are able to take a guide dog. And then blind hockey, Canadian Blind Hockey. This is a great program offered across Canada now in most provinces. And kids who are blind and low vision can go and play hockey. And the Canadian Blind Sports Association and Ontario Blind Sports Association offer things like goal ball, blind soccer, skiing, and I think even golf, curling, tennis, a whole bunch of stuff. So that is the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Erin. There's such a lot of things going on. It's amazing. So thank you for sharing that for the families that may be looking to get more information. Does anybody have any questions for Erin at this time? Katie.
I was just wondering, for some of the programming that you were speaking to, the Lake Joe and, sorry, I can't remember the name of the place in Brantford.
W. Ross.
Right. Are those funded? Are they partially funded, funded altogether for anyone?
So W. Ross is, the programs on the weekends are free. Those are fully funded. W. Ross is actually a public school. So it's run by the Ontario School Board. So if you were a blind or low vision student, you could go there as long as you met the criteria. They do boarding as well from Monday through Friday. So if you live too far away, you can actually go and live there during the week. And then if you're a day student, you would just have to live within the whatever local area that would fall into. And then Lake Joe is heavily subsidized. So I think for my kids went last year for the first time, and it was $150 per kid for the week. And it's amazing. Like, wow. It's really, really fantastic. They go for the whole week, and my kids loved the food, and they all sleep in cabins and get to do all normal camp stuff that you might not want to send your blind kid away for.
That sounds wonderful. Okay, any more questions? Well, welcome to HDSB SEAC, and we're glad to have you here to represent visually impaired students and to bring your expertise. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're now on item 2.3, and I'm going to ask Colette to give us an update on the renaming process for the self-contained LD and life skill programs. Oh, it's not Colette.
I was just about to say, and I'm going to pass it over to Conan.
It's Conan, yes.
Good evening, everyone. Just setting up the presentation now. All right, good evening, everyone. I just want to give a quick update on the status of our program name changes for our learning disability classes and our life skills classes. So just as a quick recap, this process came from feedback from SEAC and the Halton community that perhaps we needed more inclusive names to be considered to greater reflect our students and the student population. We did begin this process this fall, and we accelerated by garnering feedback in January and February. Hopefully everyone can see that there. Okay. So through two of our instructional program leaders, we distributed an online form to the stakeholders above to garner our feedback. We highlighted choices and offered some new suggestions. We also internally garnered feedback and suggestions from some of our special education staff and some of our managers of professional student services who also polled and got some feedback from some of their staff as well. For learning disabilities, some of the most popular suggestions were academic resource classroom, diverse learners, and focused learning classes, just as some examples. For life skills, we had some of the more popular suggestions for community pathways elementary, community pathways program, similar to the secondary, and functions abilities classes. I should like to note, and we've pointed this out a few other times, in changing the names of these programs, it in no way changes the criteria for meeting these classes, and both programs will remain unchanged in terms of criteria and how the classes are delivered. For example, just one example, life skills program, it still will require a diagnosis of, say, developmental disability or mild intellectual disorder. In learning disabilities class, you would still need a diagnosis of LD. But as we said, the purpose of this really is to change the name to make it feel like a more inclusive environment. That is the purpose, not to change the criteria or the dynamic of the class. Okay, so without further ado, we have come to a conclusion of to the two names we are going to call the classes. So I'll start with the learning disabilities class first, and it will be renamed Academic Resource Classroom with an acronym of ARC. And our second for our life skills class, and I would like to point out too, this was a favorite among our survey questions as well too. So it's internally we like the name, but it was also very popular among the survey. Also a top choice among the survey was a name we've also decided to go with too for our life skills is Community Pathways Elementary, or CPE for short, which also aligns with our CPP program in secondary. So those are our two names. In terms of next steps, so this is spring and into the fall, so we are going to update the names in our special education plan that we'll be finalizing this spring. We are going to put out communication to families, students, and staff of the self-contained classes, so they will be made aware of the changes in September, but also be made aware that the actual structure and dynamic of the class won't change, it just will be a name change. And we'll also essentially let the entire Halton community know this name change, and we'll broadcast it live to everyone. So this can take effect in September of 2024. And that's that. Any questions?
Conan, so first of all, on behalf of SEAC, I'd like to thank you for taking our feedback and launching this process to find new names as we move to an era where, as you say, we're trying to be more inclusive, be more respectful, and follow the legislation in terms of disclosure of disabilities. So really do thank you. And I love the number of different stakeholders that you approached in order to be able to come up with a name that everybody's happy with. So thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Okay.
No. Okay. Well, congratulations. We look forward to seeing the new names in the spec plan and starting next year.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, well, this is going to be this is a light agenda today because we know that next month is not. So we're now at item 3.0, SEAC discussion and question period. Are there any questions that anyone wants to raise? Nope. Okay. So yeah. Oh yes, you can raise. You can do it in the superintendent's report, yeah, because that's you now. Okay, so we're going to move now on to the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to give an update on our self-contained classes. We have been building our self-contained classes for next year at this time of year. And some of the changes are related to the budget and efficiencies that we've been talking about for the last number of months, and others are related to the viability of programs. So I'll just highlight some of these pieces. So in our community pathway program, we've adjusted the class sizes to an average of 1 to 12. Even though the ministry cap allows us to build to 16, we know that some of our students within that program can do well in a class size of 16, and others will benefit from a smaller class. So administrators have the flexibility to staff based on the students and their profiles with an average of 1 to 12. And this has resulted in an efficiency of 8 full-time equivalent staff members across our 7 sites. So we have an equivalent of 36 classes this year, or for next year, across those 7 sites with CPP. For our self-contained LD, or we'll call it the new ARC, we have adjusted the class size to 1 to 10. And again, there the ministry does allow us to build to 16. So we are still staffed below that ministry average. But that combined with a small drop in the number of students seeking a self-contained placement, and we can only surmise that this is really related to the robust implementation of Wilson across all of our schools, but that's just our best guess at this point. But between the reduced number of kids coming forward and the change in the class size, we are reducing by 12 classes. So we'll have 22 ARC classes next year. I've spoken before about the self-contained behavior resource classes, and that is something that hasn't been viable over the course of this year. We've been operating some of those classes very low, and we believe that there is a better model to support students with behaviors in their home schools. And so we have closed already 2 of those behavior resource classes in year, and a third one will close at the end of the school year. We will have 1 remaining BRC open next year because we have students who will complete their second year in the program. It's been rolled out as a 2-year support, and so we're allowing those students to finish their second year, and then at the end of next year, that 4th site will close. With gifted, we had 2 classes in Halton Hills that were well below the average. We have 7 students in a 5-6 combined class and 8 students in a 7-8 class. And both of those classes are actually funded at a 25-to-1 ratio. So well below the ministry funding. So we are closing those gifted sites in Halton Hills. And we have offered any students who are interested in remaining in a self-contained placement a place in the Milton class. But we've also offered those students an opportunity to cluster together so that they don't need to experience a school change for the remaining time that they have in elementary school. In Oakville, however, we've seen a real increase in the number of students coming into the grade 5 program, and so we've grown the classes by 2 there. However, we don't at this time have any students coming in for grade 1. And so at this point in time, we're not running a grade 1 class, but we'll certainly continue to monitor that and monitor that for viability in the coming months. So in terms of gifted, we have 30 classes across our system for next year. And finally, for our life skills or our community pathway elementary, it's really status quo for those classes. And we're maintaining 38 classes across the system and no change in class size there. I'm happy to take any questions about that.
Are there any questions? Jennifer.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, with the classes that you have combined or increase the number of students in, will there also then be an increase in the number of educational assistants to support those classes and support the teachers?
Yeah, good question, Jennifer. The classes, we assigned educational assistants to a school, and it's up to administrators to determine how those educational assistants are used across all of their programs and across all of their classes. And really, it's not the teacher-student ratio that drives our EA allocation. It's the individual student needs through what we call a student needs inventory that is currently underway. And we usually bring some information about that to SEAC, so we can certainly do that for next month in terms of what that process looks like, and then the full complement across our system for educational assistance, which I'm happy to say is not changing through the budget process.
Is that okay, Jennifer?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Can I take a? Yep. Can I take a question from the public?
Sorry.
Perhaps we can have a discussion outside the SEAC meeting. Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Any other questions? And just want to follow on, Colette, is there anything, do you have an additional report? Yeah, okay, we'll move to that.
I do a couple of things. So at this time of year, we are planning our special athletic track meet, and I want to announce a little nuanced change to that name. In the past, we've called it the Special Athletes Track Meet. But in keeping with our goal to not put the attribute on the individual, we are adjusting the name to Special Athletics Track Meet, and that was really highlighted after our last track meet and some feedback from a parent, and so we appreciate that feedback. But planning for SATM is underway. Again, we'll be hosting students from elementary schools across our board, as well as EC Drury School for the Deaf, on June 14th, 2024. And this is our 37th annual track meet. And we invite any of our SEAC members to join us that day. It's an amazing day. I believe it's at Garth Webb again this year in Oakville. So mark your calendars, and we'll get you an invite to that day for anyone who can make it. Plans are also underway for summer learning. So we have a ministry-funded PPF to run summer learning programs. And so we're just in the process of determining what that's going to look like, and we'll bring some information back to SEAC next month. And much in that vein, we'll also be doing professional assessments again this summer, both language and psychoeducational assessments. And this is funded again through the school board, but also through ministry PPF. And I'm happy to take any questions about those too as well.
So any questions? Anybody? I have a quick one. How many psych-eds do you think you'll be able to do in the summer?
That's a really good question. I'll know better next month. I know the dollar amount, but I, off the top of my head, couldn't tell you how many that's going to translate into. But we're just in the process of recruiting staff to do that work, and also seeking an outside provider to top up whatever our staff can't do. But I'll have a number for you in May.
Great, thank you. So any other questions at this time? No, we're now on to item 4.2, association reports. So again, I'd just like to say on behalf of Autism Ontario, happy World Autism Awareness Day. And Jennifer.
Thank you. Happy Autism Awareness Day to you too, and happy Autism Awareness Month. I have just two quick announcements from Autism. And as we know, it celebrates month. And just a reminder, is the toolkit, there's the school giving challenge, and there is the all of that is and finally, the scholarship applications open, and there are 3 scholarships that students can apply for. One is for students on the spectrum. One is for siblings of people on the spectrum, and one is for students with a parent on the spectrum. Those are 3 different scholarships that are available, and those are on. Information is available on Autism Ontario.
And so, Jennifer, you were cutting in and out a little bit there.
I know, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Can I just clarify? Are those
Absolutely.
Scholarships for post-secondary or?
They are for post-secondary. For college or university, it does not matter as long as it is a post-secondary program.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other association information? I will share on behalf of the Centre for Diverse Learners. We have a new program that is being launched. It's currently open for registration. It's actually funded by the Halton region on their Building Safer Community Gun and Gang Violence program. Recognizing that many neurodiverse students and students with special education needs are at risk of being targeted for human trafficking and involvement in gun and gang violence. We have a new social skills program that's running. We have two segments. 14-year-olds to 18 and then 18 plus, looking at healthy relationships, consent, how to enter into conversations, how to exit conversations, and where and how to go for help if you're in a situation where you feel uncomfortable. So those are on the Centre for Diverse Learners website, CDL or diverselearners.ca. And if anybody wants to apply, funding, it is a free program in Halton. Any other association reports? Then we will move on to the trustee report.
Well, good evening, everyone. I guess the most exciting thing is that the trustees, along with Director Ennis and the superintendents, will be embarking on this, initiating the process for development of the new multi-year plan for thinking now the years 25 to 20, is it 24 to 28, 25 to 29? Yeah. Yes. So that's very exciting. And we have hired a consultant who will assist us in that process, and SEAC will be one of the groups that they will be reaching out to for feedback and input into the planning for the next several years. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We look forward to offering our insight. Okay, so that's the trustees report. Yeah. Great, thank you very much. So we're now at item 4.4, which is committee reports. Any reports from our standing committees? Evelyn Bursey, Accessibility and Coordinating Committee.
Hi there. No major updates at this time.
Great, thank you. And I don't believe that Kate is here today, so we will park that and the Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Steering and Advisory Committee to next time. So we're now at item 5.0, which is the next agenda. We've already outlined that it's going to be busy next month. Next month being May, so we have both the SECED plan, we have the budget, we've got the process for student needs inventory, potentially, so we're talking about that.
And we have the analysis of the data, right, for the unidentified category. Yes, we're bringing that again, or not again, we're bringing that in May as well.
Okay, that's great. So that will be a breakdown of the unidentified IEPs and where they will fall out in terms of different exceptionalities. So that's what we have on the agenda for next month. So there won't really be much time to put anything else in, but do come prepared for a fulsome discussion and certainly potentially a little longer than normal. That being said, if there are any other items that people want added to the agenda, please do reach out and we can put those on the list of things to be considered in following meetings. We are now at item 6.0 at 8:05, and that is the closing of our meeting. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting and let everybody get off for an early start of their evening, and wish you all the best for the eclipse that's coming up. So I know that our children will be on PD, on a PD day, but for the teachers, I hope you all enjoy this wonderful opportunity to see the eclipse. Thank you, and we'll see you next month.